Hey guys, this is Tony from Tony's Tour Rental. Today I want to talk about the lifters. Why is it important to have these filters cleaned as well and making sure that they're getting proper lubrication? Now a lot of us wonder where we get this lubrication from. I mean, when we're looking at this engine block right here, is that, well, where is this coming from? This block right here is an N62 engine, and there's three valves, check valves, that make sure that we get oil with these from them. So one check valve, I'll show you the check valves in a second. Let me just try to get you a perfect understanding about this. There we go. One check valve, one of these check valves right here, which is located in the front of the engine. Now this is one check valve, 2, 3. Now those three check valves have control of each of three different scenarios. Now the oil line that goes over this gets the oil from right here, and that produces oil through that oil line, and which all of you guys know that the engine, that the oil line, it comes oil from here, and all of you guys know that it lubricates the cams, the cam lobes, from the intake and also from the exhaust. That's one of these check valves. The second check valve produces oil right here on all the where the lifters go. See all these empty white spots? Right here, all these spots is where you get oil going through them. And all the remaining leftover of oil, it'll come out of these holes right here. So basically, let's just remove this for a second. Here we go. So one of these check valves right here, it's called the one-way check valve, will give oil to the oil line. It does the lobes for the intake and the exhaust. The second one is it'll give oil through all these lifters right here. So all these lifters will get on the intake, will get oil to make sure that these work properly, function. Basically, when you have this seated like this and this rolls around, it's got a little spring to it. So that's one. And the third one is gonna do the same thing. Now a lot of people say, well, it's getting the oil, where does it come out? So if you look at these little spots right here, notice that every single one of them has got a little hole in them. Those are the drain oils. So basically anything that's left over, it'll come out of there. So it's constantly feeding oil. The third one is over here, right there, on the intake, on the exhaust valves. Same concept. See all these little holes? Those are just holes that have leftovers, and basically it's just gonna drain out of those. So it's gonna keep oil enough here, so it's constantly got lubrication, so it constantly lubricates. But anything left over, it'll continue draining out here and go back to the oil, and it circulates over and over again. So when these don't work properly, these lifters, like such as this one here, you cannot compress this one at all, versus this one right here, you can compress it pretty well. Like if you look at it, a good functioning lifter, you should be able to compress it. Now if you look at this hole right here, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, we'll try to. See, look at this hole. It's not compressed right now. Watch when we compress it. It's compressible pretty good. Look at how much I can compress them. See that? Versus the one that's not quite there yet, because it's dry of lubrication, you cannot squeeze it at all. Pay attention to this spot right here. Pay attention to this spot right here. How much it gets compressed. Not much. Now look at the good one, the proper working one. Like this. So that is the important part about it. When these lifters start to fail, usually you will start getting so the oil lamp bracket comes from here, and then there's this part that goes all across here. Now if you're looking at that, is that basically that one has got small little holes all across. It's basically for putting oil on the cam lobes here, 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 here. And same thing on the bottom. It's got to lubricate the cam lobes. So that gets the oil from the front of the, it gets the oil from right here. It gets the oil from right here and right here. So basically our two solenoid valves push in oil, and then through here it'll come up here, and from there it basically lubricates the oil here. Now these engines have 3 check valves. It's called the oil one-way check valve, and those check valves are located right here. There's one right here, 2, 3. Now those 3 control when to push oil out through here. There's one. Then let's just remove these cams out just so you guys have a better understanding. So one of those check valves will control oil coming out of here, so it lubricates the cam lobes. The second check valve is to control these part right here, is where the lifters go. These lifters right here, that's where they normally are. So these will sit like this, and then on top of that you'll have the rocker arms, which will sit on just like this. So this is the intake side. So on top of that you'll have the lever arm that just rides on it. So what this does is every time this rotates, this will push down like this and will non-stop circulating. So these lifters, they have a hole in them, and this is where they get the lubrication. And from one of those valves, it'll push oil in, but it will not let it come back out. So all this channel right here that you see with all these open spots will get filled with oil. And these also have, if you look at these little holes that you can see, these little dots, these are overfills. Basically, it will keep oil there. Anything left over, every time this is squeezing down, it'll push oil to come out through here and here and here and so on. So this channel usually stays non-stop with oil. It's got to provide oil so it lubricates the parts so that these lifters are able to compress. If you don't get enough oil through these things here, you'll get something like this one, for example. If you look at this, and if you pay attention to this part right here, see this silver part on this lifter? This one is not being compressed at all. So basically it's starving it. So what this happens is when these rocker arms are on, instead for this to be down and equally flat surface, it'll stay pushed down. And then you can have misfires. The reason why you have misfires is because now you're keeping the valve open versus closed. Open means the valve down, closed means that the valve is up. So when you have this, when you have this, for example, if this valve, assuming this valve is as is, faulted basically, is your spring will be compressed down further than it's supposed to, even when the lobe is at TDC. When these lobes right here, when these lobes right here, when these are down like this and it's supposed to be a TDC, and basically what you're doing is you're still pushing pressure down, further down, because this is up and you have enough air leaking through the valve itself when you're doing a compression test, and it could cause misfires. It could lead in a goose chase. It could lead in a lot of things. So what these also do is they like to, when they're starving of lubrication, they like to make a whistling noise as well. On the earlier models, these were common to fail, and a lot of people were having misfires. That's that. So the third one is basically right here. Third one is on the exhaust. Same concept as this one. It's a channel that's supposed to have oil in this, and when it doesn't have oil, basically you're starving it. So the exhaust valve could be pushing it down. So if you do have a misfire on a certain cylinder that you haven't been able to figure out which one and where, would be wise to go back into that cylinder. Let's assume cylinder 1 here. What I would do is I would remove these lifters out, put air in, and see if I have a leak again, because at that point there's nothing pushing pressure on the valves. Or just remove the rocker arms, push them to the side like this on all 4 of them so you don't get them confused, and then I would go ahead and put air in and see if I have the same results. If I, at this point, assuming I don't have air leak, I would put the first valve in, reassemble it properly. I would redo the compression test. If that checks out good, I would go to the next one over here. We'll do the same thing. I would grab this one, the original one, I would add to it here. If this checks out good, I would move on and I would do this side on the exhaust, one by one. And every time you put one in, you pressure check it. And the minute you find out which one, as soon as you put that one on, for example, assuming we do this one, all these 3 were good, and the 4th one I'm putting back in, and now I'm doing a compression test, is I know that there's something wrong with this place right here, and this could be the problem. I've seen a lot of people who have misfires, and this channel needs to be filled with oil completely. And if one of these is not doing properly, if it's not being compressed properly, like this one, it could block the oil to pass through, assuming right here, to go to the other ones. So now you're starving the last 3 of them as well. So what you want to do is, what you should do is, when you're doing the valve stem seals replacement, for example, it's these little things right here. I'll just take one off just so you can see it. When you're doing the valve stem seals, obviously you're not going to have you will start getting a misfire as well, obviously. So the reason why you get a misfire is because obviously you're not compressing these. So when this is not compressed, it's keeping this part up right here. It's keeping up, and this is pushing down. When this is pushing down, it's gonna push the valve down as well. And when you do air compression, you're gonna fail the air compression. So it is a good idea to clean these, and how you clean them, it's very simple. There's only so much you can do realistically. Is what you can do is you can grab them, you grab a bottle of whatever, and you throw them in and keep them and put oil in them. Then what you do is, here for example, you grab a bottle like this. All these lifters are the same. So you throw the lifter in, all the lifters in here, assuming it's with oil. shake it like this, and let them sit for a few hours. Once you get them, after a few hours, you want to be able to compress them like this. Once you compress them, grab air and run through this hole right here as much as you can, and while you do that, keep compressing it. This one is not compressed yet, obviously. It's not compressing properly. So what you do is you grab, same process, you throw them back in the bottle, shake them up, and let them soak for a few days, a few hours, and then come back and make sure that you're able to compress these by hand all the way, just like I showed you earlier on the good one versus the bad one. And you are able to pull those lifters out without removing the cams. I just did this so you guys can have a better understanding. So if I put the cams back in, here, and now let me put this in first so you guys can see that. So now that the lifter is on, let me bring this here so you guys can see it. Now we have the lifter right here. All you have to do is, once you figure out which one you want to pull off, or if you want to pull them all off, you can. Do not mix these up. Make sure they go exactly where you pulled them out. That's that. And also, whenever you're ready to pull those lifters up, you do not have to remove the cams. What you can do is make sure the lopes are straight pointing up or sideways. And then with the pliers, you can go in here and you can grab them, and then she'll be able to come right out. Just like this. And once you have these now, you can go ahead and put them in your oil jar and keep them on for a while. Shake them up. Make sure before you put them on, figure out which one is not compressed properly and which one is compressed. If you have a few, more than 2 or 3 of them that are not being compressed properly, A, it can cause misfires, 100%. B, is if you do a compression test, it could fail, the compression test. C, is one of your check valves that I was talking about just earlier, like this one right here, if you look in the picture, one of these could also be not working, it's stuck. So it's either stuck closed or stuck open, because the check valve, you're only supposed to, assuming this is a check valve, oil is supposed to only go in, never come back out. If the oil is coming back out, that means that the check valve is not doing its job. So it's recommended to replace it. If you do have over 100,000 miles and you hear engine noises that you can't figure out, it's like a little whistling noise, chances are these are your problems. So you do not have to replace them, you just have to clean them. It's tedious cleaning, but it takes time, but it is very rewarding. So that's what I would do as far as the lifters goes. This is only for the N62 engine I'm talking about. Every engine has got these. The same cleaning process goes throughout every single one of them. So air, lube, until you're able to compress this pretty nice. That's that. If you guys need any more information, any questions, please feel free to contact me. My phone number is 414-629-6459. We do rent the N62 tools to do this job. You do not have to remove the cams. You do not have to remove the engine. You can do this all while everything is still attached. The only reason, the whole purpose of me doing this with this engine head is to show you guys 100% easier, so I can explain to you guys, because it's pretty hard to do this with the engine in the car. It's tight to get in the spot, so this way I can remove the cams, can explain to you guys, can show you guys. I hope this video was helpful. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please. So basically, when you're doing the valve stem seals, if you remove one of these keepers, the valve stems, the old ones, now notice that they don't just come right out. You have to wiggle them. Once you wiggle them enough, she'll let go. And assuming you have the cam in, let's put this down here. Assuming you have the cams in, this is the cam. So you're still able to pull out the lifters by going through here. You'll still be able to see them. Let's see if we can get a better shot here. You'll still be able to see them right here. So from this side, you'll be able to grab them. You just got to make sure that the lopes are sitting like this, sideways. You do not want them straight down. You do not want them straight down. So you want them sideways, and then you'll be able to grab the lifter out just like this. And same thing when you install it. So again, if you look at it, it's not being compressed. This one is being compressed. This is the good one. This is what you want. Let's see if we can notice how this is getting flushed. This whole part right here. This whole part right here, the top lip will go in. That's what you want. And also, if this doesn't do it, what you can grab is the old ones. You blow air in as much as you can. You push it down, and you put keep those in oil. Keep those in oil saturated, and then go back, compress them by hand like this. Put them back in oil, compress them, run air through it. Over the time, that is why it's important to use the proper oil, because look at how small this hole is. And when people use different oil other than what is recommended, the viscosity is too thick. So therefore, you can't, basically you're starving them. That is why it's important. That's that. And the valves, the ones I was talking about, are right here. Let's remove this. So each of these things have a designated check valve. So the check valves are located right here. These are the check valves. And that's a T40. I already got them loose. For this, you don't need to remove anything other than the intake, and you'll be able to get to them. These are the T40. Those are the check valves I'm talking about. This is one right here. So the way this valve operates is that oil will come through here and push out. When the oil pushes it out, it'll go through a certain channel of either the keepers, either these lifters, or the cam loops itself. So you want to have proper lubrication, obviously. So this right here is, when this goes bad, one of these channels right here, one of these channels, if this goes bad, one of these channels will push the oil back, and then the oil will drain back out of here, and then she'll go right back through here, and then it comes out. Basically, it's gonna go right back into oil pan. So how do we know that these are good or bad? One way to simply check is pull them out, see in through this hole, whatever you can see, if there's any kind of debris in there. Number one. Number two, make sure that this little seal, because is, as you can see, there's a little green seal right here. This part right here. Make sure that that's still intact. You don't want to have no rips in there. So if you've done that, you can clean this up. And then what you want to do is you can blow straight through here and see if you're able to blow through the front part of it. Then this is definitely bad. This whole purpose of this one-way check valve is to release oil this way, but not to go back. So when we blow in there, we should not be able to blow in at all. It should not release air. So keep your fingers between those two slots right here. They're straight through. If you look at this hole, it's straight through. So what you want to do is you want to blow in there. It's not going nowhere. That's one. So that's telling me that this is so far good. Now I want to make sure that it's letting air through. So with one hand, with one finger, you block the other port, and with the other finger, you know, this hole right here. And then what you do is you blow in here, and you want to see if you feel air coming out of here. So I don't see nothing wrong with this valve, check valve. So that's telling me that it's letting oil through, but not coming back. So these keepers should have a lot of lubrication, basically doing what it's supposed to do. Now let's remove the second one. Here's the second one. This one had a lot of oil, so I'm assuming this one should be good too. This is the top one, and this is the second one. They look identical. You cannot tell which one is which. And the torque spec for these is 7.5 Newton meters. If you look really close here, I hope it'll zoom in. Should be able to read them. 7.5 Newton meters. That's the torque spec when you put them back in. So that was the first one. This is the second one. We're gonna do the same test. We're gonna make sure that this is good. This sounds to be good as well. Them things we do as mechanics, right? So we're gonna remove the third one. Again, the size for those is torque 40. We're gonna move the last one. Here's the last one, and let's see what we get with this one. I apologize, I said 7.5, I was wrong. It says 15 Newton meters. 7.5 sounded too weak. So first thing we're gonna do is blow straight on here. That's good. We're gonna blow these ones. That sounds good. So that's telling me that there's nothing wrong with these check valves. So the only reason why these would fail is basically, if one of these would starve, is basically because of a dirty oil that was neglected and hasn't been replaced throughout the period of time. Now this is why important is to do these oil changes. Also, another thing is, if you wondered when the oil comes directly through here, where does it go? Well, in the back of the engine, right here, there's a plug, and the plug is basically, it's a dead end. It's just a plug. Goes right here. So I already have it loose. So basically, the oil comes all the way down to here, and it just blocks it so the oil doesn't go anywhere else. So it's just a normal little plug. It keeps oil from draining out. It goes right back in. There's two of them. This is for the intake, and right here is for the exhaust, one further away. Same concept, same thing. So if you do a dealing with misfires, only on one cylinder or one valve, so to say, and you don't know, I would definitely start looking at these. It's also a great idea while you're doing the valve stem seals to pull these out, make sure that they're working properly, compressed properly, and when you're putting them back, you want to grab these rock arms right here with the pliers. Let me get the right pliers. With the right pliers, or with any pliers really, if you look at the rock arm, it's got a small little spring right here. What you want to do is you want to just grab the spring and compress it just a little bit, nothing too crazy, like this. And what you're assuring is that when you're putting this back on, it takes a little hard. It's a little harder, so you hear that click. Listen to that click. So now, basically, this stays together. Still comes out. That's it. So that's that. I hope this video is helpful to you. I hope you learned something about this. And this is part 1 as far as these things go. And part 2 is I'm gonna make another video about the lever arm and these springs right here. Stay tuned.